V1 Malta takes a trip over to Bahrain for season 8, round number 6 of this championship. Welcome aboard to what will be no doubt a bit of a precedent setter now, because it has been a little bit of a mixed bag. It is myself, James Otter, alongside Adam Reed here tonight for what will be no doubt an intense race. This V1 Malta brought to you by Hyundai, Intercomp, Monster Energy, Brand Garage Level Academy and the Specialist. Adam, well, round number, the previous round rather, round number 5 turned out to be a bit of a mixed bag in this particular championship. We're thinking that maybe, just maybe, everything was going to be setting itself out. Andrea Borg leading the way, but Italy proved to be a bit of a challenge for him.
Yeah, Jeddah was definitely a complete turnaround in this championship battle. It's going to be really, really close. Really intrigued to see how Bahrain does, because of course it's one of those circuits that really is a test for every single driver. There is your standings after Jeddah. Daniel Cini taking the win ahead Nechev and Mati Kassar, who got a penalty right at the end to unfortunately drop himself down to third. Still sitting second in the championship, 10 points behind Andrea Borg. And then we see the two Williams of David Mifflin and Michael McMullen. Emerson Zard managing to come home in 6th, with Neil Kassar grabbing some good points for Sauber, Samuel Borg, Christian Kurmi rounding out the top 10 in that one. So definitely will be really intriguing to see how they go this time around. Of course, Bahrain has usually featured on the V1 Malta series, but it hasn't in the last couple of seasons. So it's returning for the first time since season 4. So what will that mean for the drivers? Of course, it was Jake Sammet who won it last time around, but Ryan Carabotta seemed to be the king of Bahrain, winning 3 times in the first 3 seasons. 28 laps around this 5.4 kilometer circuit. We're going to be deep in the heart of Bahrain, under all of the floodlights. I think this is going to be set for so many changes. So having a look at the championship standings in just a moment, expect them to change drastically after tonight.
I mean, one thing that is critical as well is that obviously the fast free-flowing circuit of Monza, and me getting him mixed up with Jeddah last time out, ended up seeing Andrea Borg having his title chances completely cut, because Mati Kassar and Daniel Cini right behind, both on 66 points. The gap is only 10 for the top step of the podium, with Andrea Borg. David Misford is only chucking in behind as well on 61. So Williams looking particularly sharp in the constructors as well. Alexander Galea, the previous champion, the previous regional champion, down in 7th place. Of course, he missed out last time out. He didn't take part in Jeddah, and he's looking like he's going to be in a little spot of bother for this particular race as well, because he's not taking part in this one either. Emerson Zarb down to 8th with Borg in 9th, and then, of course, Kassar rounding out the top 10. In terms of the constructors, as we pointed out a little bit earlier on, constructors are looking very good indeed for Williams. They are leading the way on 108. Ferrari climbing to 2nd place on 82. Alpine down to 76. Mercedes down to 70. Kick Sauber now up to 62 in 5th place. McLaren now dropped to the right side of the board, can you believe? Now to 6th place on 50. Racing Bulls 39. Aston Martin 11. A Red Bull on 7. Haas yet to score. Of course, Haas basically resolved basically a seat for the reserve drivers at this point, and Haas won't actually be taking part in this race either. So Williams are the team at the top step at the moment. They are the team. Neither driver actually getting on the podium last time out, but the sheer consistency of driver 1 and driver 2 at Williams, at the end of the day, that is the sort of precedent setter. It's the reason why that team are on top.
Yeah, they've been super consistent. That's exactly what you want in this championship. They've had a podium apiece during this one. David Mifflin was getting his at Budapest in the 2nd round of the championship, and then Michael McMullen getting his at Monza. Also interesting to note, yes, I am going to go back to the top 3, but Daniel Cini is the only one with 2 wins in his back pocket. So Andrea Borg, who won at Budapest, and Mati Kassar won at the opening round in Zandvoort. That's really interesting, because Daniel Cini might come into this one with a spring in his step, and if he can maximize this race in Bahrain, it could be a completely different turnaround. I'm really, really intrigued to see how this is all going to play out. Not a lot of these drivers have had experience around Bahrain in the V1 Malta series, so it's a level playing field, in all honesty.
Yeah, we should be in for an absolute cracker. So Bahrain will be the next field for what will be a circuit that will be either the one that Andrea Borg returns back to form in, or are we going to see a new championship leader? Don't go away. We're back in just a few moments for what will be a no doubt an intense Bahrain qualifying. Welcome aboard then, and welcome back to V1 Malta, and welcome to Velocity Sports for no doubt what will be a very, very intense race ahead of us for the Bahrain Grand Prix. So 14 people are taking part in this particular race here tonight. We should be in for an absolute cracker here. What is the expectation for Bahrain now? Because we had two tracks in a row that was very low down force, very little in the way of a maneuver either. If you make a mistake, you can lose a bucket of time. Bahrain, though, a little bit more forgiving, I think, Adam.
Yeah, definitely. There's a bit on the circuit that kind of shows a little bit of remorse with the drivers. You know, it gives them a bit of edge to this one compared to Jeddah, where you have to be, right on the limits, right in between the walls. We had Monza and Spielberg, where you have to be seriously up with the momentum. This one's maybe a little bit more relaxing. It feels like we're also going back to basics when, Bahrain has been the season opener for a very, very long time, since 2021. It's been the season opener to the real life Formula One season. So I truly expect these guys to, really get a great sense, as I say, really get a good sense of, feeling home back at the Bahrain International Circuit. So we'll have to see what this guy can do in terms of lap time. And we now see over the line, Neil Kassar heads in towards the first corner and double lock up straight away for the Kick Sauber driver.
So the question here is, what is the expectations of these drivers as well? Because the problem is that the runners out there are wanting to go at the absolute peak, aren't they? This is a circuit now where, mistakes can be made, but time can be given. Those corners are particularly flat, actually, in this particular game cycle, especially if you go for the sort of higher higher ride height for these cars. So this is going to be one that we're going to keep an eye on. Neil Kassar running out the top 10 last time out in the Kick Saubers, who've now managed to find a little bit of mojo with the lean green machines. So opportunity here potentially to earn some big points, especially off of the back of the fact that McLaren are both not racing tonight, so they'll extend their lead if they can get within the top 10. But critically, Alpine themselves, Ronskins himself, that's Aaron Demesh, I believe, really not finding any comfort last time out, and couldn't really capitalise either on his teammate Andrea Borg, of course, third place last time out, lucky to try and win the title, but the deficit now between him and those around him has been cut drastically, now down to 10 points, now in the top 3. So he has got a point to prove, but first person to settle that will be Neil Kassar, 1 minute 28, 1:26.
Yeah, I think there'll be definitely improvements on that. We'll have to see what his teammate Simeon Nechev will do as he goes to the line. It's a 128.6, so 0.5 off. So I think he's made a mistake somewhere in the middle sector. Looks like Jake Meljak has gone and done a 128.2. Michael McMullen has gone over and done a 28.8. What about David Mifsud? He goes over the line. It's 27.7. So immediately slapping a very quick time there on the board. The drivers make their way around the circuit, trying to see if they can figure out if there's any opportunities for these guys to maybe just use a little bit of an advantage here and there, maybe pick something up that maybe the other 13 drivers haven't. We'll ride on board here with championship challenger Daniel Chinny there in P3, who has very much matured over the last couple of seasons, and he's been a real title challenger. He'll want to improve on his title run last year, where he finished second and was in the championship final 4 come season 6, but he'll go over the line 127.405 to go quickest of all. Now we're just waiting for Andrea Borsch, who's now coming in towards turn number 4.
Andrea Borsch himself not getting a particularly great exit out of 4. 28.1 is not quick, actually, either. So he's struggling a little bit in the first sector. But is that because he's just trying to maintain the pace for this set of corners? Very well, excellently crafted down at the bottom of the hill as he now approaches this left-hander. Very easy to lock up here at this corner. And that's exactly what Borsch has done as he now heads down the main, the back straight here. Of course, this is where the pit lane is for the Formula 2 cars, or rather the pit... rather the pits themselves actually for the F2 cars. He chucks the car through the left-hander then as he goes up the hill. You want to try and keep as close as you can without going on that curb on the right-hand side. Actually willing to take the curb, Andrea Borsch on this occasion. 105.5, again, not blisteringly quick from the Alpine Renault. And now he'll use the toe from a slow car in front of him. That is the Ferrari, I believe, of Daniel Chinny. As he now heads towards the right-hander here, misses his apex again. Andrea Borsch immediately out the blocks. His qualifying not looking particularly strong here for the Alpine Renault as he comes across the line right now. And he does go P2 by looks like 0.03 of a second separating him. He does get a purple sector 1 by the looks of things, but his sector 2 and 3 where he's lost his time, but he is only hundredths of a second out of the line from Daniel Chinny as we're following the Red Bull there of Keith Muscat as he approaches the final corner, and he's going to get on with his lap.
He is indeed. So he's going to now have to approach that final corner. We'll see what he can do on this time lap as he heads his way over the line to start his lap time. He's just buzzing off the limiter. You can see there right at the top range of the steering wheel, then brake before the 100-meter board, just get the car turned in. But it seems like it's struggling to rotate through turn number 1. A big snap there through 2 and 3. Luckily not invalidated his lap this time around, but let's see what we can do on towards 4. Uses a little bit of the course on the left hand side, so yeah, tries to get that rotated, and again it just seems a bit lousy, that Red Bull. It doesn't want to respond to Keith Muscat's inputs. He flies his way through that kind of middle section and on towards the right hander here, just trying to get anything he possibly can out of this race car, and then down in towards this double left hander. It's very easy to lock up, which is exactly what he's done.
As a sort of postcard then, folks, for who you think your favourite is for pole, remember, this is obviously just the one qualifying session for these 14 runners, so this is the battle for pole. As it stands then, the winner from last time out, Daniel Chinny, looking for his 3rd race win of the season. Andrea Borsch looking to try and capitalise on a 3/10 gap between him and the Williams, so it's looking like it's a bit of a straight fight between the drivers who are currently battling in the title. 10 points separating the pair of them, and remember, as many rounds that there is remaining, it would be a significant margin, that 10 points, because if Daniel Chinny just keeps putting the race wins in for the rest of the season, he will be champion. But that is all to be decided, as we just see there Keith Muscat getting into the top 10, 29.432. And I think the next person to be setting a lap will be, if I am right in saying, the Aston Martin there of, it looks like Chris Kick. It is Chris Kick. Kirsten Kumi will just be getting going with his lap. And I think, why don't we catch Adam off guard a little bit and ask him to take us a lap around Bahrain on board with Christian Kumi in the Aston Martin.
Absolutely, down in towards the first corner. You're buzzing off the limiter in 8th gear. You're looking for that braking point, the 100-meter board. Slam on the brakes to get your car rotated in towards 2. Nice turn in there for Christian Kurmi. Now try and just straggle on the throttle as much as you possibly can and get it all the way full, because you're kind of turning through 2 and 3, trying to straggle the curb there in towards 4. Use a bit of the curbing on the left-hand side to open up the corner, and then nice and smoothly on the throttle darting in towards 5, in towards 6, rotating the car around and getting yourself down in toward the next towards the next right-hander. You're hard on the brake. You're trying to get gravity to use the car to get the car in, and now you're heading in toward the double left-hander. Hard on the brakes. You're turning and rotating at the same time. You're braking, rotating. That's not going to help the braking performance whatsoever. And now back down the back straight here. You're opening the DRS and then in towards this left-hander here. You're just going to try and flick it in, right a little bit of the curb on the right hand side, but not too much of it. Get as close as you possibly can, and then you're riding up through here completely flat, brake, and then trying to use this corner as one, even though it really opens up on the inside there. Now heading on toward that last corner, turns 14 and on towards 15, which is really not a corner. You brake just before the 100-meter board, get the car turned in, clip that inside apex, and pull your way through and use the DRS, which is right there over the timing line. We go. It's 127.7 for Christian Kurmi, and that is a lap of the Bahrain International Circuit.
Yeah, Jake Malak coming across the line to go P4 in the Red Bull, looking sharp at the moment. Is the Red Bull here? Could be on for some good points. All of the team down on the foot of the table alongside Haas at the moment. Here's David Misford himself, a cracking driver, and one to keep a very firm eye on, I think, in the next couple of seasons on this game, because he is looking very sharp indeed. Comes across the line, and sharp indeed he is. He goes fastest of anyone so far with 7.75 of a minute to go. Here is the other Williams of Michael Misford McMullen, who is also looking very sharp as well. Williams themselves this season have been absolutely fabulous to watch. 3 seconds down in the first sector, though, so this will be an in-lap for him, but it will be P6 for the Williams indeed. Here's Matthew Kassar, another man tied on points with Daniel Chinny for P2 in the standings, only holding on to P2 overall as a result of countbacks. So these drivers, alongside Daniel Chinny and Andrea Borg, need to be hugging each other here and battling it out all the way. And as it stands so far, well off the pace, down in P7, so needs to find at least a second if he wants to put himself anywhere near the front. And look at that, it's only a 28-1 for Matthew Kassar, the man P2 in the standings. Daniel Chinny looking like, so far, he's got the upper hand on his man sharing the points on 66, and he's got a handle on the man in P3 just behind him on 76 points overall. As we're watching the Racing Bull there, Emerson Zarb has just gone a little bit under a tenth of a lap faster in the first sector.
Indeed, it's going to be one of those where you have to really work the wheel in this one, and you're really going to have to try and just extract everything you potentially can. Emerson Zarb, I think the sole Racing Bulls driver for tonight. No Ephraim Tabo, and so he's going to have to now try and see if he could potentially do anything about trying to maybe get past McLaren, but he's going to have to put in a 4th place finish if he wants to do that. Daniel Chinny going even faster. It's a 127.178 for the Ferrari driver in his bid to try and become the national champion in the V1 Malta series. But what about Emerson Zarb? We've been following him throughout this lap and in towards this last corner. He'll just try and get that car rotated, but it kind of over-rotated in a way. The rear did not like that whatsoever. Opened the DRS. I don't think it's going to be much of an improvement. It isn't much. It's only by 1 place, 128.843. Could have gone a little bit faster there, but I think a couple of mistakes made that happen. Andrea Borg back into the pit lane here, so he's going to now change his tyres. He drops now to P3 on the racetrack. I think that will be one of those where you just think, well, is Andrea Borg got that spring in his step, or is he struggling? Because he's a man who's had 4 pole positions in the last 4 races. The other driver who's been on pole position, Daniel Chinny, and look where he is in the moment. Could he be on for a second pole position of the season in his bid to try and close that 13 point lead to Andrea Borg has over the rest of the field? It's Borg on 76, as we discussed. 10 back is Kassar, 13 back Chinny. But this is a teammate Adon Demek, who's just at the back of the field there. He's the only driver in the 1 minute 30, so he's hoping to try and maybe get another lap in, as there's not many cars left on the track here, all preparing for that third and final run.
Valiant effort from the Kick Saubers, by the way. Really good effort from Simeon Nestev and Neil Kassar to be 5th and 6th, respectively. Again, the Kick Saubers actually in some decent form at the moment, getting close to battling a little bit at the moment with the Williams out there. The unfortunate nature for Kick Sauber is that this good turn of form has come a little bit too late in the season for them to potentially be battling with Williams for the title. As it stands, Williams certainly getting a firm hold of the Constructors' Trophy as it stands. As we're just seeing the Red Bull there. I think that one is of Keith Muscat, who's just come into the pits for P11 overall. What a great effort it's been so far, though. Daniel Chinney leading the front, 27.178, and you've got Misford in P2 for Williams. A really good effort from him, actually. It could be a good points haul for Williams as it stands if they keep at it, with Andrea Borg in P3. And a great effort from the other Red Bull as it stands here of Jake Malak with P4. He's now currently on a lap, looking to try and improve. He's a little bit out of sequence with everyone else. He thinks he might be able to get a little bit closer. He might not be looking for Andrea Borges' times over 27.4, but if he can put a bit of a gap between him and Simeon Nestev and Neil Kassar, he might be able to hold on to that second row spot for qualifying.
Indeed. I want to kind of add on to your kind of late season form from Sauber. In the first 3 races, they had a combined 5 points. In the last 2 races, they've had a combined 57 points. They currently lie 5th in the standings, 8 behind Mercedes. I think they're 14 behind Alpine in 3rd. So there are still opportunities here for Sauber to grab something, but it's going to require the work of both the drivers if they want to potentially get anything out of this one. They had the potential. They have the potential to take 2nd in this championship, but it's going to require a big last 3 races of this season. And there you can see Jake Meliak, who's doing a fantastic job in his Red Bull car to try and put himself into what could potentially be his highest performance in qualifying this season. Head over the line now, it would be a 127.1, 127.818, and that puts him remaining on the 2nd row of the grid alongside champion leader Andrea Borg.
Yeah, 85 thousandths of a second he found on that occasion. Here is the other Mercedes, this one. Of Kirsten Kurmi. He is currently 47 thousandths of a second faster in the first sector alone. So improvement potentially happening here for the other Mercedes. Now Matthew Kassar still in the pit lane, by the way, with just a bit over a minute to go. In fact, he's just leaving the pits now. So the man second place in the title hunt really down here, 3 thousandths of a second down on Neil Kassar for P6. He's currently on the 4th row of the grid. His teammate, as we're following him, 5th row on the grid, shared with Emerson Zarb in the RB Racing Bull. Comes though into the final corner then does Kirsten Kumi, looking to try and at least get himself a little bit closer to his teammate. If he could share the 4th row, that would be ideal actually. Here he comes then across the line. I'm going to beat Mithun McMullen. Comes across the line right now and doesn't improve by over a second, so no improvements at all from them. Kick Sauber there of Neil Kassar just getting around the lap here at turn 3. Turn 4 on the other hand, Simeon Nestev looking fairly sharp in the Kick Sauber. Now down 2 seconds. It looks like he's on a bit of a cool push maybe here. We'll see if Neil Kassar's doing exactly the same thing. 61,000 down in the first sector. No improvement from the other Kick Sauber.
We enter that last minute of this session. Well, this is going to be a big kind of last minute of this session. We'll see what David Mifsud can do in towards that first corner, really trying to get the car rotated as he heads his way to 2 and 3. Again, his eye kind of points will be on these brake marker boards, on these inside curves, and see if he can get anything, and just also checking the track limits as well. That's where he also needs to be putting his eye line. 11 thousandths of a second 11,000 seconds off his own personal best here. So doesn't look like he's on the roll here, but of course this middle sector could be, a big change. Maybe put a bit more wing on the car, which could allow him a bit more rotation. We'll have to see his teammates also there in the foreground. So I don't expect anything. So yeah, as I say, don't expect any kind of changes there. In case if you think McMullen will try and help his teammate, because they're both on laps. They're both in the top 8. McMullen needs to go through and try and improve his position, but into the middle sector. And it's a purple there for Dave Mithford as he looks to try and potentially take provisional pole position. This could be a really, really good lap time from the Atlassian Williams racing car heading round that last corner. Is it going to be potentially pole position Look at McMullen going up to 6th place. Looks like Christian Kimi can't go second. He's over the line. It's 5 thousandths of a second off, and that is going to finish it. Daniel Chinny has unfortunately invalidated his lap time. But what about Andrea Borg?
Yeah, this is going to be critical here. So Daniel Chinny not going to be improving on his lap, but he would have found about 2.5 tenths of a second. That's on a blistering final corner. He was expecting a bit of bucket of understeer, and he's mounted the sausage curb. Has that cost him a chance of getting anywhere near the front row? It has not. He's gone pole by just a small margin as well of a couple of hundredths of a second. I think it was going to be more for him. Matthew Cassar's invalidated his lap. It's only P8 for the man P2 in the standings. Michael McMullen goes P6. Is Neil Cassar going to be improving? I don't think so. Simeon Nechchev is going to be improving though, but is it going to be enough to potentially beat Jake Malak, who was beaten by the checkered flag? He won't be going any further than P4. Could it be P5 in the end? Simeon Nechchev comes across the line. No, he does not improve his position, but he improves on his lap time, and that was just enough for Jake Malak out of position and out of sequence with everyone else to go P4 overall. A great effort indeed from the drivers here. The Aston Martin will not be improving, so he'll be starting P13. The Alpine, the other Alpine, down at the back of the field as well. It's a great effort and a great return from our championship leader. He beats it to P1, and Daniel Chinny making that mistake, critical mistake in the end, because it would have been a 26.9 if he didn't. In the end, Andrea Borg beats him with a 27.1.
Yeah, wow, what a qualifying session we've had here under the lights. Big surprises, Andrea Borg taking pole position at the last moment. Maybe he was just keeping his cards close to his chest before taking that lap time. And also on the opposite end of the scale, Matthew Cassar, 8th place, 4th row of the grid. Is something just not working for the Mercedes-Benz team, because their cars are 8th and 10th for Christian Kurmi. We'll have to see what happens in the race. Maybe they've got a race car rather than a qualifying car tonight, but that could be that could be very much that could be very much changing all throughout. So we'll go into these results here. We'll see Andrea Borg is your pole sitter for the 5th time in a row. Daniel Chinny, and then Dave Misford with Jake Meliak. Then we find Simeon Nechchev, followed by McMullen with Neil Cassar, and then Matthew Cassar with Emerson Zarb, and then Christian Kurmi rounding out the top 10. Then we find Keith Muscat, followed by Samuel Borg, Christian Kurmi, and Aaron Demek rounding out the 14 cars.
Here we go then, lap 14 with the 14 drivers and plenty of racing to go. We'll be back for what will be an intense Bahrain Grand Prix in just a few moments. Don't go away. by our teams over at Velocity Esports, and no doubt a really, really intense one ahead of us, because Adam, very quickly, we are going to be heading through the formation lap right now. Andrea Borg has managed to get pole position, but you have to be honest with you, Daniel Chinny had pole position in his hands. He let it go, but he's arguably the faster driver here tonight. Andrea Borg hasn't got this one completely covered.
No, it doesn't. It's going to be a big kind of run down in towards turn number 1. I think Andrea Borg is going to be feeling a lot of pressure when it comes to this one. You'll definitely see that Daniel Chinny is going to be maybe charging up the inside. So if those two make contact potentially, which is, not out of the question, that will open the door potentially for Matthew Cassar, especially if they both have to pit. You've got the two Williams in there that could make an impact, as well as Simeon Nechev. I'm also looking at Jake Meliak. How is he going to perform when he's up at the heights of P4? I think it's the first time he's been kind of up here. His last kind of race cup results have been 12th at DNF, and then not attended. So this is going to be a huge moment for him. But again, we'll see what happens when we get on towards the grid. Anyone in that top 8 is worth looking for, and this is going to be a big run here, James Otter.
Should be in for an absolute crack of a race. It looks like here Simon Nechev has tried to be a bit clever and park himself towards the inside, but he's messed up, so he's now going to be moved back a couple of meters from his usual parking spot. That could pose him a little bit of a risk against the Williams of Michael Misford McMullen, as all the drivers are now lined up here, and we should be in for what will be no doubt an absolute cracker of a race here in the desert sands that presents themselves for what is going to be a big challenge for our championship leader. No more waiting, let's go racing here then in Bahrain. Daniel Chinny gets a great start off the inside here against Andrea Borg. In fact, going into turn 1, the Ferrari could immediately get a challenge in, and he is leading this race here. Switchback from the Alpine Renault, but very well crafted from the man third place in the championship, already putting pressure on Andrea Borg, and immediately gets the jump on him, both on the medium tyres as well. Is he diving down the inside? He's certainly looking for it. The glide going through into turn number 4 to the championship leader, and the man looking to try and get it. They're still side by side going through here, but there Andrea Borg immediately gets the jump back. It looks like he's caught Daniel Chinny napping while this is happening. Great start from Jake Malak. He's now up to P3 in the battle alongside the Kick Saubers, and Michael Misford McMullen getting up to P6, but it's a horrible start from David Misford, but himself, of course, he is on a hard tyre. He's wanting to go longer in his first stint, so it's not the worst case scenario for the Williams, but it could have been better.
Yep, it seemed like that's the way the cookie crumbles on that one. Neil Cassard's made his way up into 4th place, so he's in a great position. But again, look at his teammate all the way down in 7th, and there's a bit of contact. I think it's out wide. On Nechev, has he got damage potentially on that front end play? We'll have to see what happens here. Matthew Cassar is now going to be right behind him, and already they're going to be involved in a bit of a tussle. We just stick here with the Sauber down towards the right hander. It doesn't look like there's damage, so it's just the black end plate under the night sky that have kind of tricked my brain here. But it's Andrea Borg who is very lucky to be leading at the end of this one. But I think it's the poor exit off turn number 1. The momentum has led to Daniel Chinny being very poor up towards turn number 4 there. And now we see Matthew Cassar. How is he going to go about all of this? Just behind Simeon Nechev, we made a little bit of a mistake here and there. He's got to try and get past him as quickly as we possibly can. And we look back up here, the top 4 are starting to pull away.
This has been incredibly critical. Open mistake there from Jake Cos. Jake Malak is going to give the position straight up to Neil Cassar, and the collide going through into turn number 5. That is going to be a bucket of positions lost for the Red Bull, who are now tucked in, guess where? Behind both of the Williams drivers. Matthew Cassar trying to put Simeon Nechev under pressure, and the collide going side by side, going through turn number 7 and 8, and that is going to be critical. They're still side by side going through here. Remember, this is the man second place in the title, as well as Emerson Zarb goes wide. Great switch back at turn 10 from Matthew Cassar against Simeon Nechev. He's now up to P7 is that Mercedes, but remember, he's second place in the title hunt and joint on points with Daniel Chinny, who is in P2 and still putting all that pressure at the moment on Andrea Borg, who is now leading this race. Of course, a great switchback at turn number 4 to get the Alpine Renault back in position. But remember, you've got to be honest and say Daniel Chinny has been the faster driver throughout this entire race weekend so far. Andrea Borg, it was critical that he got this position back, but now he's going to be looking ever so vulnerable with the DRS now available.
Indeed, Daniel Chinny will be looking to see if he can potentially take a move in the early stages, or is he going to be one that's going to hold back and just keep that Alpine Renault under a bit of pressure as they start to climb the hill on towards turn number 4. Once again, the DRS flaps open for Daniel Chinny, and he'll close, and that's Matthew Cassar tumbling down the order. And what has happened to him is he had a spin potentially off turn at number 2. I wish we had a replay here to be able to see what Cassar did, and unfortunately for him, he dropped all the way down to the back. Emerson Zarb now battling away with Simeon Nechev. Of course, the Italian Grand Prix race winner is really looking to see if he can potentially get anything out of this race for the Kick-Sauber team. He needs to try and pull a bit of weight as Neil Cassar is doing, because Cassar is up in the podium. His best result was back at Monza, which was a fantastic race weekend for the Kick-Sauber team. His best finish being 6th, so he's going to try and finish on the podium. But how easy will that be? Trust me, it will not be easy whatsoever. But he is staying with the front two, and he'll hope that these two battle, which is indeed what they're doing, because I think that Chinny wants to have a look down the inside, down there about, I think, what was turn 12.
Neil Cassar looking particularly sharp, and DRS helping him, but I think his lack of ERS management this season, you may see that his ERS is probably going to be a little bit lower than the front two in front of him, so you might start to see that Kick-Sauber eventually give way. Here is Daniel Chinny. Now he's got DRS and he's got ERS, and he is using overtake to try and get as close as he can to the Alpine Renault. Is he going to dive for it going into turn 1? He's certainly looking for it. That's late on the brakes from the Ferrari, but the switchback opportunity for the Alpine Renault. They'll go side by side through turn 2. Opportunity for the Ferrari to hold this one. Neil Cassar already with the 3-second time penalty as well, the man in P3. But there goes Daniel Chinny with the DRS available, able to pull the gap. He now retakes the lead of this race out of the championship leader, and he of course tries to continue to cut that deficit. Remember, 10 points is the deficit between P2 and P1 as it stands so far. 25 plus the 18-point difference will mean that deficit will continue to cut. But as it stands, if Daniel Chinny manages to win this race and Andrea Borg loses that position to Neil Cassar, Daniel Chinny will take the lead in this championship on countback.
Yeah, this is going to be a huge moment in this one. So I think if you are, as I say, if you are Daniel Chinny, you're going to have to now try and see if you can potentially pull a gap. But you know, how much are you willing to kind of risk those tyres, because they are not going to be in a great shape in a couple of laps time. I think he would want to be doing a medium to hard, but I don't think he'll be able to potentially do that unless he nerfs them a bit. But he does put in a purple sector just to try and extend that lead, which is exactly what he is doing. Currently sitting at 7.5 tenths of a second, putting it up to what's almost, there you go, 8 tenths. It is still just about there and sets the fastest lap. So Daniel Chinny is not backing off whatsoever, but both on pretty low energy recovery system.
That's going to be fairly critical now, as they've obviously got to consider the long-term ramifications of this race now. Lap 5 of 24 laps to go in this race. As it stands, Neil Cassar just holding on to the DRS of Andrea Borg, but the lack of ERS is becoming a significant problem, as it is for this man as well. Jake Maylight managing to get back up to P5. It's a great effort from the Red Bull, but he is burning through his ERS and his tyres as he tries to chase down the Williams of Michael Misford McMullen. The 3 M's themselves looking great indeed at the moment in P4 for the Williams outfit. P6 for Dave Potts himself, David Misford, who's looking also particularly sharp as well, because this is going to be a fairly critical stint now here, as we've got looks like Kristen Kermy's gone for a bit of a spin in the Aston Martin. Here's Matthew Cassar making the move on his teammate now up to P11. It's not a points haul position as it stands so far for Matthew Cassar, and that's fairly critical for the man P2 in the standings, especially when the man P3 in the standings on the same amount of points is now winning this race, and the man directly in front of him on 76 points, 10 points is in P2. So Matthew Cassar's race as it stands could be a fairly critical one in terms of this championship. Neil Cassar just managing to close down now on Andrea Borg, but again, you'll start to see him hemorrhage a little bit of time, but actually managing his ERS quite well at the moment, despite the 3-second penalty to his name here. Has the Kick-Sauber got an outside chance of potentially putting these two under pressure? Well, who knows? Either way, they're putting themselves under pressure. Around the outside, Andrea Borgia will have to go, and the Ferrari, able to hold on, is going to go side by side through here. Very well crafted between the pair of them, but DRS available for Andrea Borgia. Is he going to look for it to the next corner? He's not using overtake, as they will hold station and remain in the status quo, with Daniel Chinny still leading this race on lap 6 of 29.
Borgia's energy recovery system management is now just been almost topped up because he used a bit of non-ERS. So he's also saving a lot of battery in that battery pack to try and just recover some energy here. Meanwhile, Matthew's eyes on the absolute burners, I should say afterburners, in fact. He's trying to pile on the pressure to Keith Muscat, but I think the gap that he's going to really stumble over is that 6-second gap to Emerson Zarb. That's going to be one that's going to be so difficult to try and overcome. And of course, trying to lose a lot of time there. Keith Muscat, why can he get the exit of the Mercedes-Benz? He's managing to just accelerate up toward the next corner, but with the DRS now, he should just fly on by with ease. And there goes the Mercedes, dispatches the Red Bull, who is looking to have a really good run. In fact, this could be Red Bull's best ever result in the team's championship. Their best result was Monza, with the 6th place with Keith Muscat, when as I say, he got 7th place. Meanwhile, Andrea Borgia once again having a look at that Ferrari. He's going to go even quicker up the inside, late braking. Will he be able to hang on? And also have to see how that all kind of pans out. Look at McMullen there in P4 and 5, but again, this battle still continues to resume. And Daniel Chinny will just slice himself in front. But Neil Casar, the brilliant view of this. He's sitting back like he's in a cinema.
Yeah, absolutely fabulous though from Daniel Chinny and Andrea Borgia, trading DRS, trading positions, and Daniel Chinny straight back to the top step at the moment as it stands. While this is happening, we've got Malak, who's now up to P4. He's managed to get past Michael Misford McMullen, and now the Red Bull back into the position that he was sort of fighting quite well for. But then in the end, after that little scrap with, I think it was Michael Misford McMullen, ended up losing a bucket of positions, but absolutely no issue at all to gain those positions right back. The only issue is that he's now 5 seconds behind Neil Casar and the championship, and the podium positions here. But with that 3-second penalty for Neil Casar, it's only realistically a 2-second gap now between Jake Coles and Neil Casar. So if he continues with this pace, he might still have a bit of a chance of potentially getting a podium and Red Bull's first podium of the season. Either way, the two Williams still holding station quite well together in 5th and 6th place. Of course, the team looking to try and wrap up this championship in the next couple of rounds, and certainly a 5th and 6th place is looking pretty decent when all the other teams at the moment are sort of split between in the what is described as a bit of a sandwich, with the Williams team the filling at the moment. Andrea Borgia using his DRS. He's got overtakeable. He's not using it because he is getting closer. Goes for the move into turn 1, trying to get the late breaker. Bit of a lock-up from both of the drivers going through into turn 1 as they go through into turn 2. The Ferrari holding station, but is it going to be a move going through into turn 4, I wonder? DRS available for the Alpine Renault. Is he going to use overtake, I wonder? No flashing light indicating ERS is being used. Around the outside, they will have to go. What a sweeping move this will be if he gets this one done. The Ferrari, though, having the traction, and Daniel Chinny still holding station in the lead of this race. He is the faster driver, but he's not shaking Andrea Borgia off very quickly.
Yeah, indeed. Andrea Borgia will be really on the push to see if he can do something. But look at Neil Casar, because he's doing an incredible job there. Half a second back. He's maintaining himself. I don't know how much he wants to get involved with that battle, because bearing in mind that's for the championship. Neil Casar currently just sits on the fringes off the top 10. He's 61 points back from Andrea Borgia, so it'll be a very kind of tough ask. But I'll have to see how that all pans out. But again, now having a look further down here, or actually look back with Neil Casar, because he's now turning in towards what should be, I think, turn number 13. But again, snaps away there, and I think the tyres are just going to be starting to go there. The mediums not quite hanging on as they used to in these early stages. So again, if that is a sign that Neil Casar is going to be one to try and drop back a touch, going into the pits there, but of course he's trying to break the toe here, James.
Well, Neil Kassar, I'd be considering an undercut here because that could really throw a spanner in the works for these two who keep trading positions. Andrea Borg retaking the lead of this race now, but of course Daniel Chinny has got the DRS going through into turn number 4. So the question is will that position, as Jay Malak has just been overtaken not by 1 but potentially 2, as well as Simeon Nechchev up to P4. Michael Misford-McMullen still battling with the Red Bull here. They're still battling towards the front here between Andrea Borg and Daniel Chinny. Looks like that Andrea Borg will hold on to the station. What is this battle for P5 though between Michael Misford-McMullen and Jake Coles? It looks like a little bit of a late breaker and a Lando Norris-esque move, just not very well executed for the Red Bull, and he will stay now down in P6. He's lost 1 and 2 positions respectively as Jake Malak on that one, so definitely a bit of a 4-way scrap here for the battle for P4, and if they continue battling they're only going to lose positions to this man, Neil Kassar, who is up in P3 with that 3-second penalty. So if Simeon Nechchev has got any nous on him at the moment, he'll use his brain and try and make sure that everyone around him loses his positions, because it could be a decent and another podium here for Kick Sauber as it stands, as we keep an eye on Daniel Chinny just following station, and down at the back of Andrea Borg, both of them using the ERS none at the moment, trying to recharge the batteries as much as they can. A little bit wide actually, a little bit of dirty air I think off of the back of Andrea Borg, just forcing Daniel Chinny to lose a bit of time. Just a little blast of overtake maybe as he comes out of the penultimate corner into the final corner. Again, just the front end not really clicking at the moment, that perhaps the dirty air effect becoming a bit of a problem. Uses DRS, then will the Ferrari look to try and make this move? As it stands though, really struggling with his ERS management at the moment is the man third place in this championship hunt. He will not look for the move into turn 1, but he could look for it into turn 4, as we're starting to see our first medium tyre runners on lap 10 of 29 consider their strategies. Hard tyres, I think, are inevitable here for the 3 drivers that are in the pits. That's Michael Misford-McMullen, Jake Malak and Matthew Kassar, as it looks like the other Ferrari as well forgive me, I think it's Samuel Borg, isn't it? He is also in the pit lane, and a fresh set of tyres waiting for him. It's a fresh set of medium tyres actually for the other Ferrari runner. Andrea Borg getting close, but Daniel Chinny making the move. Eventually going through into that corner, very well crafted. Neil Kassar still hovering behind them here. I would consider a bit of an undercut opportunity here for the Kick Sauber if I were him.
You're right on that one. I would consider it too, because you're seeing everyone else now around starting to make pit stops around us. So why not just kind of try and throw off a couple of drivers? Meanwhile, Andrea Borg is having a look up the inside. That's quite unexpected there. But I think with the traction that he had, Daniel Chinny might just try around the outside. It's going to be pretty tight between the two of them. They're going to bang wheels. In fact, bang twice there, it seems. And I think up the inside, Andrea Borg will go, but into the DRS will go Daniel Chinny, so he'll get a bit of inside information to see if he can potentially just try and see what it's like being in the toe of the Alpine. He'll get a wash of understeer, but then he'll get the traction. He rides the curve down the left on the right hand side, and it looks like Andrea Borg stays out. And that leaves Daniel Chinny coming into the pit lane here. He's going to now try and make an undercut unless Andrea Borg has the self-knowledge that these tyres might not may be able to go a couple laps longer.
I'm curious about that decision there, actually, from Andrea Borg, who decides to leave it out a lap later. He's committing to the overcut now, but Neil Kassar is the one out of these front 3 who haven't actually burnt through their tyres that aggressively. So Neil Kassar actually could breathe down the neck of Andrea Borg and actually might have a little bit more mechanical grip at the moment in that Kick Sauber. Either way, where is the Ferrari leaving at the moment? He's leaving in P6 in front of the Alpine, the other Alpine rather, there of Aaron Dimesh. So he is now with completely clean air on a fresh set of hard tyres here. Surely the undercut is going to work an absolute treat here for Chinny. We'll see anyway. Either way, Neil Kassar is getting the DRS off of the back of the Alpine, so that will help him out in his little scrap. He's thinking about that battle, of course, not just with the likes of Daniel Chinny, but he'll be thinking about Michael Misford-McMullen, because he pitted now 2 laps ago on these fresh hard tyres. So he's going to be breathing potentially down the neck of the other runners here. So just keep an eye on this one. Now, surely we're expecting a pit stop here for the championship leader and race leader Andrea Borg, and of course Neil Kassar in P3. That 3-second penalty still looming over the head at the moment of that Kick Sauber driver, the only person with a time penalty to his name. So both of the drivers surely diving into the pit lane right now. No, No, in fact, Neil Cassar stays out another lap. Andrea Borg is now into the pit lane here. Where is he going to be in comparison to Daniel Chinny at the moment? Because the undercut is relatively decent around this particular circuit. There is Daniel Chinny. He's coming across the final corner right now. Remember, all the other drivers in front still yet to make the pit stop. Here's Daniel Chinny, and he's looking like it's going to be an absolute monster of an undercut as Daniel Chinny now gets the move and gets past Andrea Borg. No issue. Remember, they were hovering around about a few tenths of a second. Where is Andrea Borg? Remember, he's also got to warm his tyres up as well. There he is, look, coming out of the pit lane and going around turn one. The gap is around about 3 seconds. That is a huge undercut in comparison to those around them at the moment. Michael McMullen is only 5 seconds behind Andrea Borg himself. He's had an absolute blistering undercut himself. He's actually breathing down the neck of P3.
Yeah, that's really interesting to see how that's going to go. Jake Meliak definitely going to be trying to push on forward. Big lock up there for Daniel Chinny. He's trying to push and make sure he maintains that 3 second advantage. I think that's just going to be what his main aim is to be throughout the majority of this one. You know, she's got to try and keep it clean, you know, to do the rest of the race, keep it nice and clean. What was that, about 16 laps that he has to try and do as clean and as fast as he possibly can. Looks like Neil Cassar is going to be staying out again, it seems, or if not, it's just going to come past the past the pit lane once again. So it's going to be an interesting strategy, this one. In comes Simeon Nechev, and I think Neil Cassar is just going to be enjoying life. He's going to be in cloud 9, knowing the fact that he's leading this one. Looks like David Mifsud is going to continue on his long-ish strategy, as well as Amazon Zarb. So I wonder how quick that David Mifsud would be come the end of this one, because as you know, he's going to be on the medium tyres, but they just really die off pretty quickly in this one. You see that drivers have just been able to 10 laps. So, look at this one. Down towards turn number 1 we go. And that's going to be Simeon Nechev right behind Jake Meliak. But McMullen, who has made a pit stop already, is going to be very much holding the Red Bull up for a bit. So that's going to allow Simeon Nechev to gain right back on the rear of Meliak as he continues to try and fight away with his car and the Williams racing car ahead.
Yeah, the undercut has been extremely powerful for Jake Malak and Michael Misford McMullen. The gap of around about 3 laps in terms of deficit, though, may come to harm them as we get towards the end of this race. So keep an eye on that one, because Simeon Nechev won't be anywhere near as much faster than the front 3, but the front 2 in front of him. But that may end up proving to be a lot more helpful towards the end of this race. Still following Neil Cassar, by the way. I'm now starting to think, is he considering oh no, he's got a puncture, front left puncture. There is it. I was considering whether it was going to be a medium soft stint, but now his race is completely done and dusted with that puncture on the front left. Dave Potts will then take the lead of this race as he dives into the pit lane here. And Neil Cassar, what a critical mistake that was to continue the overcut strategy on these medium tyres. He thought he could go the distance. I was wondering if he was considering potentially doing a medium soft. Well, that completely throws that one out of the blocks. He's now straight onto a hard tyre to the end of this race, and now losing so much time. On top of the fact that the undercut is so powerful, you're going to see him tumble down the standings. Is he going to get jumped here by the Mercedes, potentially of Matthew Cassar, I wonder, going through into turn 1? It looks like he's just going to get in front of the Mercedes of Matthew Cassar, but he's down to P7 and with a 3 second time penalty. Neil Cassar's race is done.
Yeah, that's going to be Neil Cassar. He out of the running, I think he would just be fending for his life against Matthew Cassar for the majority of this one. He'll try and fight back, but I think the best he can get is maybe a 4th place, which is still good, or maybe even
2-stop as well.
Yeah, it looks like a 2-stop. You're right on that one. Well done for noticing that one. So unless he goes for the soft tyres with a couple of laps to go, he's going to have to pray for a safety car, which doesn't really happen much in the V1 Malta series. You know, happened probably about 3 times this season, but in all honesty, it doesn't really happen. So we'll have to see how this all kind of pans out for the rest of this one. But I don't expect any safety cars in all honesty.
Yeah, that's critical, that one as well, because Neil Cassar is now committed to a 2-stop straight race as well, because he started on a medium, He's now on a medium, so he's now switched over to a set of medium tyres. He can't finish on them. He has to pit and have at least 2 compounds of tyres at some point in this race. So unless it starts raining out of the blue in the middle of the desert, it's looking very much like Neil Cassar's race is going to be done and dusted, because the two-stop is just not powerful around here, and he's not looking particularly quick either as well on those fresh medium tyres, although of course he has to warm them up. Here's Jake Malak. He's getting closer and closer to Michael Misford McMullen. Williams really could do with the continued form that they're on. A bit of a mistake though at turn 1. He got caught out getting in the wing mirrors there, did Jake Malak. It's really good racecraft actually from the Red Bull to just catch the eyes off of that Williams, and now he might have an opportunity going through into turn number 3 using as much of the power he can in that RBPT Honda power unit. And Red Bull, getting a bit of a tank slapper out the corner, has lost the position now to the Williams as a result. He had the pace and he had that one done, but just one little bit of too much, a little bit of too much for toe on that power pedal, that loud pedal on the right hand side, and that has cost him the chance of getting up to P4. But he's still battling hard, and right behind, of course, guess who? Simeon Nechchev in the kick Sauber, also happy to get in this position, as well as of course Neil Cassar. Remember, he has to do another pit stop.
Yep, will be really intriguing to see how that all kind of pans out. So it's David Mifsud there leading the race, but of course still has to make a pit stop. At what point do you make that stop though? You probably want to be making it around about lap 18. So he's got a couple of more laps to go before then making his way into the box and then changing those tyres to hopefully do what should be about a 10 or 11 lap sprint. Daniel Chinny leading the way, then in second place ahead of Andrea Borsch, 3.3 seconds to the gap. So hoping to maintain that all throughout this one. And then we find Michael McMullen, who's looking to grab another podium for the Williams team. Jake Meliak there in P5 ahead of Simeon Nechchev and Neil Cassar. Neil Cassar just finishing the fastest lap of the race as well. There's been a little bit of a tussle there, and I think Simeon Nechchev is involved in a big old battle here down in towards turn number 1. There's 4 cars involved in this one, and McMullen just keeping ahead. Nechchev and Cassar will have a little bit of a ding-dong, the two kick Sauber teammates, hoping to maybe try and get through on the Williams, because around the outside comes Neil Cassar on those overpowering medium compound tyres, and we'll have to see if that kind of all works out. It looks like in the end it's still the Williams in the front of this one, but I think this is crucial for both Sauber to try and get a good on this one. And in fact, there he goes, Neil Cassar up the inside, who'll force out the Williams and say, come on Simeon, let's go through together, push on.
Yeah, this is where it's going to be all critical. He's going to look for it as well. The Williams is certainly looking for it down the inside of turn number 10. Fabulous move there from Michael Misford McMullen to get Neil Cassar back. He knows what Neil Cassar's doing. He's thinking that kick Sauber's trying to get in front of me so that he can hold me back, try and get Simeon Nechchev, let Simeon Nechchev through, and then hold everyone else back. So then that's other kick Sauber can at least capitalise on 10 points for P5. So really, really excellently crafted from Michael Misford McMullen. But of course, he will be a sitting duck going into turn 1. Everyone else has got DRS and ERS at their disposal, but Neil Cassar will now consider he needs to get in front of this Williams, then get Simeon Nechchev to overtake the Williams, and then allow Nechchev through. Neil Cassar will then just, despite the fact his race is done, will then hold and use the pace of those medium tyres to hold everyone back and give Nechchev every possibility to capitalise on the P5. Here they go then. They'll go 3 wide going into turn number 1. This is excellently crafted from Kick Sauber. Simeon Nechchev gets the move done. Will Neil Cassar also get in front of the Williams? They certainly will. He's surely not going to battle with his teammates. Surely not. He certainly is. I thought this was well crafted from the Kick Sauber team, but it looks like to me it's all in fair warn. It's a free-for-all between the Kick Saubers. They get close there potentially, but surely the hard tyre runner's got to be let through. Simeon Nechchev gets the move done. Kick Sauber have got to work with each other now. Neil Cassar cannot battle with his teammate, knowing the 2 stops there is only going to cost him time, but they're battling anyway, are the 2 Kick Saubers. Side by side going through into turn number 6. This is critical here between the pair of them. They've got to keep battling here. They've got to not battle here because they've got to consider Simeon Nechchev's one-turn race. They've collided. The 2 Kick Saubers have collided with each other. That is critical. Neil Cassar had absolutely no drive whatsoever in this battle. He had to pit anyway. He's collided with his own teammate. Kick Sauber's form is down the toilet.
What have I just witnessed? What have we just witnessed? That's massive for Sauber. They've topped themselves. Big amount of points. Meanwhile, Andrea Borg is going to go straight through here on David Misford, and we'll see the gap now reset. 3.5 seconds to the Ferrari. That's going to be a lead. That is going to be very difficult to try and catch. lock that inside break here. Meanwhile, Williams are absolutely loving life. They're third and fourth with a car yet to pit here. Meanwhile, Matthew Cassar makes his way up into fifth place. He's going on the road for fourth. That's a big old lunge. My word, Neil Cassar leans on Jane Meliak as they head their way on towards one, and then on towards four they go. DRS will be enabled for both of them as they climb up the hill towards turn number four. Who's going to be ahead of the apex? It's going to be the Sauber to push through on Meliak, and I'm sure there'll be a bit of happiness, but also a sting to the side there of Neil Cassar after what just happened in the last lap.
And we've lost our first person in the pit lane. Looks like the Mercedes there of Kirsten Kumi has decided to call it quits, and he's decided to go for a little bit of a nap, hasn't he? He will now wrap this one up now. Will that Mercedes runner? So Neil Cassar on a fresh medium tyre. Ooh, what's happening with him here? He's getting a horrible tank slapper out of the corner. What are Kick Sauber going to do? The pair of them are going to have to sit down, bang their heads together, and understand that they're racing with each other, not against each other. And with Neil Cassar on a two-stop strategy, there was no debate, no battle with him. And actually, if anything, if your race is done, why don't you help your teammate out? Instead, you've dropped a bunch of points in Kick Sauber, who could have capitalised on the fact that both McLarens were not battling here tonight, actually might not get as many points as they want. While this is happening, Dave Misford is now finally in to get off of the hard tyres that he started on. He's now on a fresh medium tyre to the end of this race here. They'll go the distance. Oh, Neil Cassar's race going from bad to worse. It's 13 seconds worth of penalties now as well. This just adds more fuel to the fire at Kick Sauber with that 10-second penalty on top. Simeon Nechchev trying to go side by side here. It looks like they're going side by side with the RB there of Emerson Zarb. They'll go through turn number 3, no issues whatsoever, but the DRS will be available for the Kick Sauber. In fact, it will not. It will be for the RB, but he's still going to battle here with the Racing Bolt, and the Kick Sauber has found a gap, but the gap is just not grippy enough, and that move still holding on there. Great move and great effort there from defensive effort from Emerson Zarb up in P6. While this is happening, in very quiet race from Matthew Cassar, the man P2 in the standings, is now in P4. So he's got an opportunity to earn some points here now, has Matthew Cassar, to try and defend and try and at least be still in this title hunt. He's kept a very quiet race, and quietly, he's on the chance of a podium now.
He is, and that's going to be massive. That's going to be very, very critical to his race. He'll need to try and get that podium to stand within a shot of taking having a chance of this championship, because he's losing some big points in the championship. He's losing another 3 to Andrea Borg, who's going to be overtaken by Daniel Chinny in this race as well. So it seems to be going from bad to okay there. Matthew Cassar has managed to make the move because McMullen's in the pits. That's going to be massive. So I think it's actually going to be 2 stops here for some drivers, unless they feel they can't quite make it to the end. But there goes Simeon Nechchev up to P4. Big move there being made by the Salvers. He looks like on a recovery, driving up the inside. Whoop, hello. As David Misford on the Racing Bulls, and the Williams will fly on by.
Yeah, absolutely no issues there for Misford as well on the fresh medium tyre. Remember, it's a one-stop strategy for the Williams. Is going to be super sharp, and it might be on for a fastest lap here as well. So to keep an eye out on that Williams, because he is looking super sharp indeed as he tries to get past Simeon Nechchev and try and close down the 8-second gap to Matthew Cassar. He's got to basically knock off a second every single lap if he wants to try and reclaim a potential podium. Now, the tyre delta suggests that he probably has the ability to do it. It's just a matter of whether and how quickly he can get past this man, Simeon Nechchev. Now, if I were him, I would be considering getting it done now if I possibly could help it. But as it stands so far, it looks like he's willing to just hold station, recoup some of the energy, and look for it going into turn 1. But after that, he's going to have to find about 1.2 seconds a lap if he wants to try and get Matthew Cassar in P3 now on the podium. The top 3 in the standings remain as they are in this particular race, but this man, David Misford, is going to be hot on the heels of those in the front 3, and it looks like no time wasted for David Misford. He doesn't care about the DRS, he just wants to get on with it. He now overtakes, goes into turn, the final corner ahead of the Kick Sauber, but the amount of sheer grip off the back end, no issues whatsoever against Simeon Nechchev. Gap 8.4 with 8 to go.
Indeed, and that 8 could be very, very changeable here. Simeon Neshev trying to have a look at the outside, and looks like Mifsud is already covering the gap there. Neil Kassar goes over with soft tyres, by the way, with a 1:30.446. That could be the fastest lap of the race that we see all throughout this one. We'll have to see how this all kind of comes into fruition, and now we'll see if McMullen can maybe overtake Neil Kassar, who's got a big amount of penalty. I believe it's still 30, because I don't suspect that he would have, it's still 13 seconds worth of penalties, so he wouldn't have been served the minute he drove into the pits. That's now going to have to be served on the racetrack here, so that's going to be very problematic, I feel.
Yeah, fairly critical here for Neil Kassar's race, going from bad to worse. Collides with his teammate, first person to get a 3-second penalty, and then gets a further 10-second penalty for speeding in the pit lane, as well as on top of that having a puncture. It's been a tumultuous race at best for the Kick Sauber, who I think actually is at risk of another puncture as well if he's trying to take those soft tyres to the end of this race and he's churning out fastest laps like that. Got a sneaky suspicion that those tyres may not last the distance. We'll see though. Lap 22 of 29. We've not got many laps to go in this race, and so far it's starting to come to a little bit of a head. Here is Emerson Zarb in the Racing Bull Visa Cash Grab RB, whatever they're called this week. The team looking to try and, capitalise somewhat on a decent race result here ahead of them, but as it stands so far, happy to just capitalise with a P6, I think, for the White machine. Keeping an eye on the Simeon Neshtev, just holding off now onto the back of David Misford on the medium tyres. Now the tyres are bedded in to this race. I think if he can't make any inroads quickly, he's at risk of potentially losing this podium as it stands, does David Misford. He needs to find around about a second a lap, 7 to go in this race, and about 7 seconds. So actually he's on par to be at least at the back of Matthew Kassar, but he needs to continue with this pace and it needs to be consistent, and that is what Williams have been great at this season.
Yeah, that consistency is keeping them well in this within this championship. Of course, as you said, as we spoke about at the beginning of this one, they led on 108 points. They're absolutely flying ahead. I think they're 26 ahead of Scuderia Ferrari. Now, I don't think that's too big in terms of constructors championship points, but when they keep it consistent, they've got one car leading and one of them in P10. I do kind of question, and also Neil Kassar's come in for a set of hard compound tyres, so that's not going to be the right tyre choice in my opinion. I think he's just done the strategy completely wrong in that case. So unfortunately there for Neil Kassar. I think he's also served that 10 seconds time penalty as well. But this is the battle we're focusing on here. Daniel Cini has eaten too much out of the tyres. A bit of a wiggle from Andrea Borg, because he's now at 1.2 seconds behind that Scuderia Ferrari. So unless Daniel Cini's been saving or Andrea Borg is pushing either way, that gap has really closed down from the 3.5 seconds that we saw a couple of laps ago. But now it's going to be serious crunch time, and this is going to be one of the real deciders in this championship hunt. Whoever wins the championship at the end of the season, they'll look back at this one and think, if I'm ahead on this one, that would have been the real turning point. Into the pits comes Keith Muscat for the soft compound tyres. He's away down in 9th, so he's trying to pick up a couple of points here for Red Bull as well. I think Meliak is going to be the leader in that one. Still picking up what should be 4 championship points to his tally. He could also catch Michael McMullen by the end of this one. There also could be future stops at the same time. Again, on towards lap 24 now. This is going to be a big moment in this one.
A real testament to the front two in this race as well. They've now managed to pull a 22-second gap, nearly a 22-second gap to Matthew Kassar in P3. Now, Matthew Kassar is now on a considerably aged hard tyre, the oldest of those in the top 3. You'll see when Matthew Kassar comes across the line, he'll be on 14 lap-old hard tyres. Meanwhile, David Misford is gaining at a rapid rate of knots now against Matthew Kassar. 5 lap-old mediums versus 14 lap-old hards. He needs to find around about a second a lap, as I said. As it stands, again, he's still on target to be potentially on the gearbox of Matthew Kassar on the final lap, but he can't make any mistakes. He's just got to get on with it, continue with the gap against Simeon Nechchev, and have that be 4 seconds when he comes across the start finishing line on the next time of asking. While this is happening, Andrea Borg on 1 lap old younger hard tyres. His gap is now around about 7/10 of a second, so he's found the 2 seconds that he needs to get onto the back of Daniel Chinny. But now this is where the dirty air effect comes into play. He'll start to feel that the front of the car just is not turning, and that will put more pressure on these tyres than Daniel Chinny, and that will basically equalise that tyre delta that both of the drivers have got. They'll start the 25th lap of this race with 3 and a bit laps to go in this one. Matthew Cassar is looking like he's just about to lose the 4-second barrier to David Misford before they get to the start finishing line, and I have a gut feeling Matthew Cassar's tyres are just starting to now really fall off.
Yeah, I think that's going to be one of those where, tyres are going to be really coming into question. And look at this. Boys, what do you do in this situation? We're going to be seeing an absolutely titanic battle. It's probably about who's nursing the most. Remember, Andrea Borg decided to go a lap further, a lap longer than Daniel Chinny. So you'll be really hoping that he can get any sort of performance as well. Down in toward the right and then in toward the left-hander they go. Daniel Chinny will be definitely feeling the pressure behind Andrea Borg. And I think that this is going to be one of those where, again, Borg still sliding away. I think he's a maximum chat here. He wants to attack, but the tyres and kind of the dirty air that are coming off the back of Daniel Chinny's Ferrari just saying, no, you don't. I think there's a bit of a kind of a defensive, invisible wall to Andrea Borg's attack. So unless he can muster up something really exciting, especially looking at that energy recovery system battery pack, my word, we're hearing for an absolute thriller. I just wonder, how much do you need to go from a full battery pack to a dead battery pack? Probably you can probably go through one in about, 2 laps? So, yeah, around about lap 27, I think we're going to be seeing Andrea Borg absolutely deploy as maximum as he possibly can. And again, double lock up there for Daniel Chinny. He's really so excited to feel the pressure of what could be his 2nd win in a row, his 3rd of the season.
Yeah, could be fairly critical here now. No overtake being used here for Andrea Borg, but the Alpine Renault looking very quick in a straight line as they go into turn 1. Double lock up from the Ferrari, but just about hits his apex. Does that Ferrari as they start to feel the pressure now. 15 lap old hard tyres. Back to the battle for P3 temporarily, folks, because David Misford has now cut that deficit down to 2.4 seconds as he comes across the line with 3 to go. He's now got a delta of around about, hang on, he's losing a bucket of time on the straight though. Hang on, let's just go back on board with him. What's his ERS management like at the moment for the Williams? Let's have a look. He's got absolutely nothing left in his electrical pack now in that Mercedes power unit, but nor does Matthew Cassar now. So they're now purely on the V6 power units that power both their Mercedes, the Mercedes power units of the Williams Mercedes and the Mercedes ... Mercedes. So Matthew Cassar is now 2.3 back, and again, it's now all about that tyre delta, and that Williams still looking very sharp on these medium tyres. Remember, the puncture happened for Neil Cassar at lap 13. He'll come across the line with the 10-lap old medium tyres, but he is burning them very quickly indeed. Now the gap will fall just below 2 seconds as it comes around turn 10, with 2.5 to go. Matthew Cassar is at risk of losing this podium, potentially on the final lap of this race. But the dirty air effect is going to come into play any second now as we start our 27th lap of 29.
Indeed, and we'll head over and see this lead battle. Let's see if Andrea Borg will be deploying all of it. He seems to be deploying as much as he possibly can. And in towards turn number 1, lock up there from the Ferrari. He'll force him out here. They're off the track there for Andrea Borg, all 4 wheels. And now they'll start the incline up towards turn number 4. Will there be any opportunity for Andrea Borg? He will not be able to make anything happen this time around. Where will be the next place to do it? It will potentially be down in towards turn number 12. That happened so many laps back. But I'm getting some serious, I don't know about you, James, I'm getting some serious Silver War vibes of this one.
Yeah, potentially the 2 upcoming champions, one already a champion as well, looking to just really set some serious precedents. And the regional champion himself, Andrea Borg, well, wanting to be a regional champion himself, is looking so so sharp at the moment now, but he can't get past that very quick Ferrari who's defending like a lion at the moment. It's a valiant effort from the Ferrari, who is leading this race with just a bit over 0.8 of a second separating the pair of them. And again, back in the battle for P3, Matthew Cassar's gap to David Misford is now 1 second. He won't get DRS on this occasion, but he will get DRS on the 28th lap. And that means that Matthew Cassar is at serious risk now of potentially losing this position before we even get to the final lap at the moment. But the dirty air effect will now be a problem for this Williams Mercedes. Back to the front, battle for P1. Where is Andrea Borg in this situation? Look at the amount of time that is lost in all of this one. They're both going to have to seriously consider a complete recharge of their battery packs. That's late on the brakes from Andrea Borg, but he can do so because he's got the gap. Loss of the rear. Very well held though, tank slapper from the Alpine Renault, but both of them have now got to recharge their batteries urgently. Here is David Misford. He is struggling with his ERS management, but DRS now available for the Williams Mercedes. How is Matthew Cassar's ERS looking? Has he protected himself here? Going into the corner slightly, maybe, but that is going to be risky. Misford has got to start recharging his battery pack this lap. Use the DRS, stay within the toe of the Mercedes, and then maybe put a charge in going into turn 1 on the final lap of this race. That Williams is looking sharp and he's favourite.
It does seem to be, and we'll have a switch back to this one. 0.6 of a second remains the gap here between Daniel Cini and Andrea Borg. In towards the left-hander of 11, and they'll climb up the hill towards turn number 12. Is Andrea Borg set for what could be a last gasp overtake? Does he do it into 1? Does he do it into 4? Well, that rear kind of doesn't denies him a bit of momentum as well, and that gap will just see to open up that little bit more. Lock up from the Ferrari once again as he slams on the brake pedal. He'll just carry as much as he possibly can. It looks like Aaron Demek is the one getting the penalty in that one. And on to the final lap of this race here. Here comes Andrea Borg once again. He'll switch to the inside, and what could be a big manoeuvre here. They'll make contact on the apex. That is a big old bang here for the Ferrari. Could just about hold on, but it'll be the run towards 4. Nothing, no momentum whatsoever. We look back here, Mifsud up against Matthew Cassar, up in towards turn number 1, and here comes the Williams. How easy is this going to be? It is sweet. Up the inside and squeezes the Mercedes as well, but he'll just go bang into the back of his fellow engine manufacturer. And on the incline towards turn number 4, will Matthew Cassar be able to come back? It doesn't look like it. Those hearts are screaming for help to wait for this checker flag, and there's not long left here, and Daniel Cini's on his way to a third victory this season.
Andrea Borg has just lost DRS as well to Daniel Cini, so any hope of potentially putting Daniel Cini under pressure is all relying on Cini making a mistake on his own accord. Misford has managed to get the move done on Matthew Cassar. Matthew Cassar will lose a bucket of points, as will this man. Andrea Borg making a mistake at the penultimate corner. The deficit will be cut once again as a result of this particular race. The last race was an absolute disaster for what we thought was a man with one hand on the trophy. He has now lost that hand, not just once, but certainly twice, because that points deficit will now be reduced to just 3. Daniel Cini wins here in Bahrain again as against Andrea Borg. It's a cracking race between the pair of them, and what a valiant effort once again from the championship leaders at Williams. David Misford has put a valiant effort in on the inverse strategy to go from a hard to a medium. He had a deficit of over 10 seconds to get anywhere near Matthew Cassar. He had to battle with some midfielders as well, but he'll be happy to take P3 here tonight. Matthew Cassar finishing in P4 loses a bucket of points to those in the top 2. Simon Nechta finishing in a cracking P5 actually from Kick Sauber, especially considering he crashed into his teammate. Michael Misford McMullen will be disappointed with P6, but it's a decent points haul for Williams as Malak finishes in what is a very lonely P7. Emerson Zard finishing in P8. Here's the other Red Bull as well. It's a decent-ish points haul here between Keith Muscat and Jake Malak. They'll finish in 7th and 9th respectively. Neil Cassar will finish in P10, but He has 13 seconds worth of penalties. His race was already done and dusted before they got going, and he will finish in P10. But I do think Ferrari will at least have a double points haul here when Samuel Borge comes across the line and takes P10. Right, in fact, no apologies. It looks like he had a time penalty as well, a significant one. So actually, Neil Cassar got away with it. We'll see if the Alpine has managed to get away with it here as he comes across the line now in Dimesh. He will finish in P12. It looks like Neil Cassar, despite all of this, has still managed to get that solitary single point. Can you believe it?
Yeah, well, what an amazing result there. But as you say, the championship lead, I confirm after the calculations that I've done, has been slashed to 6. Big moment in that championship fight, and I think Matthew Cassar will be looking back at this one thinking, yeah, where did it all go wrong? Because he now finds himself, well, 16 points back from Andrea Borge. So that is going to be the title of the story of this championship battle now, between now and the checkered flag in Abu Dhabi. 50 points are going to be up for grabs. The celebrations start and round 6 of the championship ends. This is going to be a championship that is going to be going down, as I say, right to the very, very bitter end.
Well, we'll take a look at those final results then in the end. What has been an absolutely fantastic race, actually. I think we might be getting the black screen of death. So that will be the end of this race. We'll get our final results, no doubt, posted all over our social medias. Of course, follow us at Velocity MT. We'll head back over here because that is now at the end of this race. Our calendar is now coming to a very, very crisp end now because Bahrain, with being done and dusted, round number 6 being done and dusted, it means that we're now on to our final couple of rounds of this particular championship, where we take a trip over to round number 7, as hopefully the graphic will appear in just a second. There it is, Mexico in just a week's time. And then, of course, we have that little break before we go into Abu Dhabi. And what a critical break that could be for the likes of Andrea Borge, whose championship deficit has been slashed. The question is there, who is the favourite going into Mexico? Because if Bahrain's got anything to go by, Daniel Chinny is on fire.
Yeah, I'm just having a calculation, but as I say, yeah, you know, you're really looking at kind of that top 4, Borge, and then Chinny, who's 6 points back, Cassar, who's 16 points back, and then David Mifsud after that podium is now 18 points back. So you're really looking out, seeing, you know, what are the changes that are going to be possible in this one. I can really kind of sense that. I think that, you know, those top 2 were just a different class tonight, you know. Unless something can happen in Mexico that sees Matthew Cassar drag that 16-point lead back, it's going to be a really tough one. It's going to be massively, massively tough. I think the best he can do is maybe get within 6 of Andrea Borge. I think it will be Cassar, Chinny, Borge. I think he'll be hoping, in all honesty. But would that happen in Mexico? I'm not too sure. It's going to be a really, really tough circuit in that one. That can throw up so many different surprises.
3 very similar circuits as well, Bahrain, Mexico and Abu Dhabi, and the fact that you've got those individual long straights which could pose a little bit of a challenge for people with DRS. But of course, if you manage your ERS right and you manage your setups right, you're in a position where you end up only benefiting later down the line. So we're off to Mexico, of course, that big long straight, the longest straight going into turn number 1. So keep an eye out on that one, as keep an eye out on the rest of our socials as well. Velocity Esports also taking part with the Acer ACC GT3 Championship as well. That will be taking place on Thursday. And of course, across the entirety of the Velocity Esports channel, give us a follow over on X at Velocity MT for more information about us. And a big thank you, of course, to everyone here at V1 Malta, alongside Hyundai, Intercomp, Monster Energy Brand Garage, Level Academy, and the Specialists. We'll all be back here for the Mexico Grand Prix, and you will hopefully too as well. Take care. Ta-da.